Lazarus' sickness is not unto death. That should be some good news to some people on today, that the sickness is not unto death. The financial strain is not unto death. What you're going through, your situation, is not unto death. No, it happened for the glory of God. And the Son of God will receive glory from this. So if you're going through something on today and you recognize, oh my God, I thought it was going to kill me, but I recognize that I'm still putting one foot in front of the other. Perhaps the word is speaking to you that it is not unto death, but this is for the glory of God. Do I have somebody here who might have that testimony that you're going through something and you're realizing right now in this moment that this is not unto death, but this is for the glory of God? It may not feel like it, it may not look like it, but certainly it is for the glory unto God. In most elementary school classrooms across the United States, students are faced with this same question every single year. What do you want to be? Or what do you want to do when you grow up? I remember this question was posed to me and my classmates, and I remember responses like this. My buddy Maurice Butler, he would say, I want to be a professional basketball player. And my friend Gerard Williams, he would say, I want to be a football player. My friend, and she was my best friend, Jada Gray, she said, I want to be the first Black woman president of the United States. And my friend Teresa Brooks would say, I want to be a doctor. And as a child, these types of classroom discussions would give me anxiety. They would give me anxiety because I never knew how to really answer the question, because I was scared that whatever I said, I was not going to be successful. So it was no need for me to say or put it out there what I really wanted to do. I would overthink this assignment so much that when it was my turn to give a response, I would say the most outlandish things, the most outlandish occupations I could think of. And most of the time, this classroom discussion got me sent to the principal's office because my response was disturbing, to say the least. My mother is at home watching, and she's probably shaking her head because of my responses to this particular question. What do you want to do when you grow up? This question, I often wonder, why did they pose it this way and not say, who do you want to be when you grow up? Because if they asked me who I wanted to be when I grew up, that would be easier for me to answer. I knew as a child I wanted to be a good person. I knew as a child that I was being raised to fear God. I knew as a child that I wanted to love others. I knew as a child that I wanted to serve my community. I knew as a child that I wanted to do good for all mankind. I knew that as a child, but that's not what they asked. They asked, what do you want to do? And not, who do you want to be? How many of us have been caught in life making plans about our lives and how we want the situation to end? That's what they were asking us to do in kindergarten, make plans about our lives and how we wanted our situation to end. And perhaps we should give equal thought to who we want to be while we're going through the storms of life? Who do you want to be when you're going through the things of life? And not what do you want to do with life? Who do you want to show up as when life is lifing? Who do you show up as? Do you show up as the praying saint who will go to God? Do you show up as the one who will stop asking everybody else and ask God? That's who I aspire to be. That's not who I always am, but that's who I aspire to be. Or are you the one that asks everybody so that you can get the answer that you want, so that you can really go cut a fool because somebody else finally gave you the answer that you wanted? Who do you show up as? In the text, we find Mary and Martha, who were panicked because their brother was sick. These sisters, they had it all worked out. They knew that we're going to send a message to Jesus, and by the time the message gets to him, he's going to turn around from where he is. He just left Judea. He went across the river. He's going to come on back, and he's going to heal Lazarus, and that's going to be the end of the story. And after all, it was Lazarus. And everybody knows how Jesus felt about Lazarus. Lazarus was his boy. Lazarus was not one of the disciples, but Lazarus was his boy. He had a different relationship with Lazarus. Lazarus was his friend. The Bible says Lazarus, the one he loved. Mary and Martha knew it was a no-brainer. He's going to come back and he's going to do it. It's going to happen the way we said it was going to happen. The same way it does when we say in kindergarten, I'm going to be a professional football player. But we know that to be a professional football player, it's 1 out of 1,278 people who become a professional football player, if you look at the statistics. 1 out of every 557 football players that go to college actually go to the pros. And then only 50% of those make it on a pro football roster. And then only 20% of those who make it on the pro football roster actually get to stay. But we're making plans. So Mary and Martha made these plans. Look how many times we've gotten familiar with Christ. How many times have you gotten in a familiar place with Christ and you knew that it's going to happen the exact way I ask him to do it. It's going to be the exact way I ask for him to do it. It's going to be the right color that I asked for. It's going to be, come on now, you ever gone to the car dealership and you realize I picked out that one. I want that one. And God said that he would give me that. He going to give you what you need, not what you want. And so most of us get caught in a place where we're asking for what we want and we're not considering what we need because that's God's job. And so when we get what we need, it's like it don't look like what I wanted. Come on, people. It don't look like what I wanted. You thought the situation was going to work out, but the way it worked out actually took you for a loop. See, our text highlights 3 things that happen when the love of Christ shows up in your life. When the love of Christ shows up in your life, if you're taking messages, his love teaches a lesson. His love always teaches you a lesson. One thing we know about pledging and one thing we know about being initiated, when you pledge and not when you're being hazed. When you're pledged, it always teaches a lesson. When you're being hazed, it just hurts. That's for the initiated. They understand what I'm saying. His love always teaches a lesson. Here we find Mary and Martha, they were at a place of familiarity with Jesus, and they knew that they were going to get exactly what they asked for. Jesus is going to come back to Bethany. He's going to come back across to Bethany, and he's going to heal Lazarus. It will all be well. And Jesus got their message, and he said, this sickness is not until death. I could imagine Jesus. Jesus was so cool. He just said, man, all right, I hear you. The sickness is not unto death. How many times have we called out to Jesus in desperation? We've called out to God in desperation, and then it's just like he ain't answering, he ain't saying nothing. That's because he said, man, it's not unto death. Some of us should get joy on today, knowing that you're calling out to God because a situation doesn't feel good right now. And he's saying, this is not unto death. This is not unto death. When I read this scripture, I realized that I had some situations going on in my life, and I realized that Jesus was playing it cool with me. And he said, this situation is not unto death. It's not what it looks like. It's to give me glory. It's to bring me glory. You should be happy on today that it's to bring him glory. And so it is recorded that Jesus stayed where he was for 2 more days. 2 more days can feel like an eternity when you're waiting on an answer. 24 hours can feel like an eternity. First Lady can be a witness. 24 hours can feel like an eternity when you're waiting on an answer. And Jesus stayed 2 more days. 2 more days before he returned to Judea. Jesus' love for the sisters and their brother, it was never a question, but his love for them made it necessary for him to teach them a lesson. Sometimes the love of God is the thing that is going to teach you a lesson. How many of us have been in a classroom of life and we didn't learn the lesson? And it was because we didn't learn the lesson that we had to repeat the lesson over and over and over and over again. I know that I'm not the only one who has to repeat a few lessons. Lesson 1, never get so familiar with Christ that you think you know the plan. Let me say that again. Never get so familiar with Christ that you think you know the plan. Isn't that how we are? We put ourselves in higher places than we ought to be, and then get our feelings hurt when it doesn't work out the way we thought it was going to work. We are trying to think with the mind of God, and God says, my thoughts are too high for you. You cannot ascend unto it. You cannot do that. You cannot do it. Our Father knows the number of hair on our heads. He knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He knows what you need, and he knows what you want, and he knows what you want will hurt you if he gives it when you want it. Most of the times when we get a desire to want a thing, the thing is not for the right now. I put the desire in it so I can work some things out of you so that when I give it to you, you'll be ready for it. But we get caught up in, no, I saw what God had for me. I want it right now. I know he's going to give it to me right now. He said, it's not for right now. It's not for right now. I put the desire in you so I could work those things out of you. You got a few lessons to learn before I give it to you. But we get so familiar with God. We get so familiar. No, I know he's going to give it to me. I know he's going to give it. He gave so-and-so a house. I know he's going to give me a house. He gave so-and-so a husband. I know he's going to give it to me. He gave so-and-so a wife. I know he's going to give it to me. And God says, sit down. This is not until death. But this is for my glory. The Bible reminds us that eyes have not seen, nor ear heard, nor neither has it entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for them that love him. He's saying, I prepared some things for you, but don't get too familiar with me. We're not on first name basis yet. How many of you have been in a house with your mother or your father and you slipped and you called them by their first name? Maybe that's just my testimony. Maybe that's just my testimony. I remember one time I slipped and I called my mother Brenda like I was her girlfriend, and she said, hold on. We're not friends. I'm your mother. We're not on first name basis. Some of us try to be on first name basis with God, and then we turn around and get our feelings hurt. Because God is teaching us the lesson that we don't know the plan yet.